You know, this is a long time coming, and I mean a very, very long time coming. I've always wanted to not accept it, to just somehow hold out to some slimmer of hope that maybe, just maybe, we could probably get this shit back on track. But there's no point anymore. There's not. I want to say that I wanted to see a comeback. I wanted to see them rise from the ashes like a phoenix and somehow get their shit together. But they can't. For some reason, they just can't. And after a while, you just get sick and tired of hoping and just constantly hearing all this bad news. What I'm referring to is, of course, the DCEU, or Worlds of DC, or DC films, or whatever they're not trying to label it as. That's sad too. You don't even know what your own cinematic universe is called. Like, you don't know if it's called DC Films or DC Cinematic Universe or DCEU or Worlds of DC. We don't know. We don't know. Because WB certainly haven't given it a name. So we're just left with our own interpretations of what to call it. And we don't even know if it's called a cinematic universe anymore, because it doesn't feel like one anymore with what they're planning. With Batman apparently not being part of the DCEU, or maybe it is, maybe it's not, who knows anymore? Or with this whole, rumor about it being rebooting it from the beginning, actors leaving left and right. Ezra Miller and Ray Fisher their contracts ended. Ben Affleck left. Henry Cavill is still up in the air. We don't even know if he's going to be back. So now we're just stuck with this limbo where we don't even know what's happening. The only original people from the Justice League or the Snyder era is Gal Gadot and Jason Momoa. That's it. No one else. Well, no, that's not true. It's Jason Momoa, Gal Gadot, Joel Kidman. I think that's his name, Joel Kidman from Suicide Squad. Margot Robbie, Jai Courtney. I think that's how you say his last name. The guy who played Captain Boomerang. Apparently, Viola Davis is back, and I think Jared Leto. Maybe, probably not, but who knows? But that's it. No one else is back. No one else is coming back. And that's the worst part of it all. That we lost so many actors to play these characters. So many of them are gone. And it hurts me the most because Henry Cavill might be gone. Now, Superman, you don't mess with Superman. Superman is literally my all-time favorite. Like, that is my ride or die hero. So to hear that we may not be getting another Superman movie for such a long time, and then to hear that apparently Supergirl is going to be taking Superman's place, that's unacceptable. That's just completely unacceptable, and I cannot be a part of that. But I feel like all these problems with WB and DC just stem from WB not knowing how to plan this universe well. I mean, look at the way they did, even going past Justice League. Look at the way they've done so far after Justice League. I mean, they put Shazam and Aquaman. I still believe this. Shazam and Aquaman should have been mixed matched. Shazam should have came out December 21st because that movie centered around Christmas. And Aquaman should have come out around maybe July or after the date where Spider-Man Far From Home was coming out. That way it had plenty of room to shine on its own. Because that one could have been the perfect summer movie. So the problem with the way WB handles their movies for DC is that I don't know, I don't even think the executives watched those movies or even saw what each one was dealing with in terms of their scenery and what time of year it was. I don't think they even watched the movies. I think they just said, put that there, put this here, and then just kept it moving. God, it's just so sad to see this cinematic universe slowly crumble. And then you also have to take into account Hall H, Comic Con. They've decided that they're not going to be attending this year's Comic Con. And you wonder why that is until you realize, you really look at the numbers. And I actually got this from Film Junkie, where he kind of broke down a few reasons as to why we probably won't have a Hall H. And it mostly comes from the fact that their movies haven't been doing well in the box office. Like, for example, this year alone, what they promoted last year, it was Lego 2, Fantastic Beasts, Aquaman, Shazam, and Godzilla. Of those movies, only one of them was a success, and that was Aquaman, making 1 billion in the box office. Shazam, it didn't really perform well. It sort of underperformed. And I want to talk about Shazam for a second. Shazam was put in probably the worst place out of all of these movies because WB, for some odd reason, decided to put Shazam in the middle of two very huge Marvel movies. One, where it was Marvel's first female led superhero film, and the biggest event of the MCU ever. And somehow WB decided, yeah, let's put these two films, let's put this very small indie-esque film in between these two huge powerhouses. It'll make money back. Well, guess what? It didn't. It did not make enough. It made a little bit, but not the money it deserved. Because Shazam got great reviews. And yet the money didn't come in because people were buying tickets for Endgame. Didn't nobody give a shit about Shazam. Like, they gave a shit after Captain Marvel wasn't what they wanted. And then they saw Shazam and was like, oh, this movie's a lot better. I guess I'll be watching this one from now. Ooh, is that Endgame? Oh shit, Endgame's coming up. And the rest is history. Shazam got disrespected. And it's WB's fault because they put Shazam in between these two powerhouse movies and thought, yeah, this'll work. But it didn't. And they messed that up. But anyway, going on from there. Shazam barely made its money back. It made its money, sort of, but not enough for promotions and the studio taking half of it and, costumes and things like that need money. There's that. And then there's Lego. Then there's the Lego movie that did not do well at all. Despite the first movie doing so good, the second movie barely did anything. Hell, the second movie barely had as much promotion, in my opinion, as the first Lego movie. The first Lego movie was more of a gamble, and it worked. The second one seemed to have been riding on that gamble, and it didn't work again, because there's probably no innovation. There's probably no form of innovation. Innovation? Is that how you say it? Anyway, no new stuff. I wouldn't know. I didn't really see it. And then there's Godzilla, which unfortunately is not doing well at all. Well, it's not doing that well. It got some low scores, and it's not doing well box office wise. And then finally, there's what was another movie I mentioned? Anyway, point is, all the movies that they promoted from last year did not do well, and of them, only Aquaman was the one who rose to the top with a whopping 1 billion. It just, I just feel so terrible in seeing a universe that I had put so much time and defending into, only to see it slowly fade away into this decrepit bullshitness that it's become. It's like Fox's X-Men now, in my opinion. A universe that had potential but was slowly corrupted and fell apart. The only difference is that Fox was still trying to hang on and still tried to do the best they could for the fans that they had. With the DCEU, however, WB just sort of took what it had, threw it to the wall, and saw whatever could stick. Not even wondering or questioning whether or not it was in good quality that its dedicated fans would enjoy. It's become such a clusterfuck with WB and DC. It's gotten to the point where, at this point, it really doesn't even feel like a cinematic universe anymore. It just feels like movies that are coming out that don't connect with each other. Which leads me to this unfortunate epiphany. They should just reboot the whole thing. I've been saying for years that I don't want them to reboot because I like the characters that they've selected. I like the actors that they've chosen. I've liked the story narrative that has carried it on up to this point. I loved Man of Steel. I liked Batman v Superman. Suicide Squad is meh, but I can still enjoy it. Wonder Woman was great. Justice League, Justice League, I feel, is where it all fell apart. But even then, I still had hope that they could probably come back. But with all these plans that are coming out, these rumors, a new actor playing Batman, Ben Affleck's out, Ezra Miller's out, Ray Fisher's out, Henry Cavill might be out. It's starting to just feel like they've completely lost their hold on this cinematic universe. They don't got it no more. They don't got no big plans, from what I can tell. They don't got no actors who are sticking. They don't have that anymore. All these promises for movies, for actors, for storylines that they're going to do, none of them came to pass. And unfortunately, it just feels so muddled. And it's gotten to the point where I just can't deal with this universe anymore. So yeah, just reboot it. Keep the actors that make an impression on the fans, and then just reboot the whole thing. You know, start fresh. Start with a universe that has, a head chief that will stick and they won't fire mid-production of the final phase movie. Like, I'm still gonna hold true to, me liking Zack Snyder being the head chief because I felt he had something of a plan. He was gonna make his DCEU 5-part trilogy movie thing, and then he was gonna bounce. He was just gonna bounce and be like, okay, I'm gonna let you guys do what you do now. Continue on the universe from where I left off. But instead, they fired him before he could even finish that dream. And then they told him, because I think Zack wanted to do Man of Steel, BVS, then Justice League, then Justice League 2, then Justice League 3, and then end it there. And then he was just going to let other people do their own thing with the characters, let someone else be in charge, and then keep it moving. But instead, they messed up that entire vision by putting Suicide Squad and Wonder Woman in there, and then they literally tore apart Justice League and restitched it together with bullshit from Joss Whedon. So, yeah, it's better they just restart the whole universe, start fresh, get someone who knows their stuff, get someone who has lived and breathed DC Comics and knows what fans want to see. Get someone who can have a good handle on everything. I don't want to say this, but get yourself a Kevin Feige. Not someone who will pretty much dictate what every DC movie will have, because then that just leads you to making the same movie over and over again with no real, depth. Don't be like Marvel. And I'm gonna say that Marvel movies are good, but they all end up kind of, you know, fusing into one another and don't really have any individuality sometimes. But that's what I want for DC. Like, get someone who knows DC Comics but will let the directors do their own thing. Be director driven like you said you were going to be, WB. That's all I could possibly want. I just want a successful cinematic universe so that we can have an awesome Superman movie. Because that's what's really keeping me here in the DCEU. The possibility of a Superman movie. Because I loved Man of Steel. And I want to see more of that version of Superman. But I know that's never going to happen because Zack's gone. And unfortunately, I have to accept that we're never going to get another Superman movie like Man of Steel because Zack Snyder's gone. It's not going to happen. We're never going to get another Man of Steel 2. It's never going to happen. And so I have to accept the fact that the next Superman we get is probably going to not be as good or just be a very cheap imitation of the original one that I fell in love with. But yeah, I think it's time to just restart the entire cinematic universe. Start fresh. Start from a small point and then build your way up again. It'll take a long time. It'll take you a couple years. But you know what? At least you'll be starting off fresh and then building yourself up from the bottom to the top. And I think they could do it. They just need a better plan for how they're going to do it. Don't go announcing films that you know you're not going to do. Shut down any rumors that talk about a movie that's coming out. Shut that shit down. Say no comment. There's no comment. If we didn't say it's happening, then it's not happening. Do stuff like that. That's very important now to your cinematic universe. Shutting down empty promises. There's so much that they could do to ensure that their cinematic universe doesn't fall into the same rut. They just gotta think less like executives a little bit. Not a lot, because, being an executive has that thing going for them. But just also get someone who knows comics. Just get someone who knows and breathes DC Comics. You had Jeff Johns. Now get someone else. Someone who knows and breathes comics. Hell, I'll take, who's that person writing with Ava to do New Gods? Is that Tom King? I think that is Tom King. Have Tom King stick around. Have him stick around. Have him, help out in trying to make this universe stick close to the comics. Because he probably knows his shit. So have him stick around. And then have yeah, I don't want to say this because I fucking hate him so much, But you might as well have James Gunn in there. Not for input, but more so because he's been around Marvel. He knows, he has seen he's probably seen how Kevin Feige plans out his stuff. Ask a little advice from him. He might know some things. Do anything. And above all else, please call your cinematic universe something. Don't rely on fans. Don't say, oh, it's not the DCEU. It's not the DC Cinematic Universe. It's not Worlds of DC. It's not DC Films. Call your cinematic universe something. Call it something. Because you cannot go around and continue to not have a label. That's all I'm going to say for this. If they really want to get their shit together, now is the perfect time to do it. Because this is what we got. This ain't working. I don't know if Walter Hamada is, somehow thinking up a plan, but I hope he's thinking up a good plan, because as of right now, the DCEU or Worlds of DC or DC Films, it's looking pretty dark. And not the good dark.